Hey, what's going on, everybody? Halloween is fast approaching, and I have moved twice in the past few years, which really prohibited me from doing a full haunted house garage conversion for Halloween. But I have good news. I've just cleaned out my storage unit, which was about 2 hours away from where I live now, and also had most of my Halloween props and decor. So this year I'm all in, and I'll be uploading more content with my creative process for making a haunted house and demoing some of my props. For this episode, I'm going to demo my creature crate, commonly referred to as a monster in a box prop. This, of course, was inspired by Tom Savini's creation of the character Fluffy for the Stephen King adaptation into the movie Creepshow, one of my favorites. I made this about 10 years ago, and it has been a very faithful prop. What do I mean by that? Well, when you build a Halloween prop, you should always plan to build it very well and ensure it is very strong and able to withstand any motorized mechanisms you install. The last thing you want to do when trying to set up for Halloween is having to do a lot of prop maintenance. So I had to learn that the hard way when the lid of this thing blew off of my pickup when I was taking it back to storage, and the 3 small hinges holding onto it didn't stand a chance. Now I made sure it was very secure before transport, and I even installed a piano hinge on the lid to make sure that would never happen again. Another point I want to make is this is a very simple prop build, and it would be a great first build if you've never done this before, but you can make these things as simple or as elaborate as you want. Surprisingly, for as simple as this prop is, it's probably one of the most popular props I've ever built as far as scares go. Sound has a lot to do with it. The growling and roaring effects are great, but so are the chains banging against the wood. We all know from scary movies that sound is everything. And this thing scares the kids and adults alike. People love this thing, and I think one of the reasons why is that it's a believable gag. It really looks like there's something inside trying to get out. Most of these props only feature a lid that bounces up and down or a crate that jostles about, but what really sells the effect in my prop, I think, is really having a creature inside in the form of a Halloween mask and gloves, which I'll show you in a second, and some sort of uplighting or backlighting to silhouette your creature. Now, some people add a fogger to this prop, but I really don't think that's necessary, and it kind of overcomplicates things. You're most likely going to have a fogger in your haunted house anyway, and that's going to create a little bit of haze, and that's really all you need to add to this effect. Now, I have put it on the porch before, and it was equally successful there. In fact, as soon as it went off, half the people approaching would usually turn around and run back down to the street. So if you did put it outside, I would just put a fogger behind it with a fog timer set at an interval. That way you don't have to hack a fog machine and overcomplicate this build. So I'm going to show you some detailed photos of the prop and some video of it in action. I will also provide the dimensions. But I want to say there are some other how-to builds on YouTube for a prop like this, and they would be a great reference for you. When I build a prop, I consider things like storage. The nice thing about this prop is that it is so heavy-duty you can stack things on top of it when storing it. But you also want to make sure that the lid is at its lowest level, which is determined by the position of the cam. More on that later. Also, when building a prop, you should consider how wide and tall it is. Those are the most important elements for a haunted house prop. It doesn't matter how deep it is because usually the prop is seen from straight on. So if storage is an issue, you can keep the size of this down by making it shallow. A good rule of thumb on a larger prop, which this one certainly is to make it about 20 inches or less when it comes to at least one of your 3 dimensions. And in this case, it's going to be the depth. The depth is the one I usually choose because it allows you more aisle space if you're doing a maze inside your garage. Larger props need a lot of space for people to walk around, and if you only have a 2-car garage, you have to be mindful about how large your props are. So just a consideration. This prop is controlled by a prop controller that operates a windshield wiper motor, which is pretty standard in the business of home haunting. And the motor is regulated with a speed controller. I purchased these things at monsterguts.com, again about 10 years ago. I made a cam out of MDF that I sanded very smooth and mounted to the wiper motor. This provides the action of the prop, and you can see how essentially it rides along a nylon spacer placed on 2 brackets mounted to the lid. As the lid bounces, it rattles the chain attached to the top. Some people use real chain. To sell the effect though, the chain needs to be a certain size. It needs to look beefy, but real chain is very heavy and can stress the load on your motor. So what I use is plastic chain, but I don't use the Halloween chain that you can usually find at Spirit Halloween or the dollar store because it's hollow and almost too light, and the sound is not as loud as you want it. You can buy this particular plastic chain at any hardware store. They sometimes come in yellow or red, but I found it in black. If you can't find black, just paint it black. Now, although this prop is simple, I'm going to make some minor modifications this year, but not to the motor or the mechanism. I want to add glowing eyes to the creature to help sell the effect even more, and I'm going to go with either green or amber, I'm not sure yet. I also get some audio feedback in the form of a hum or a buzz, and I think the culprit is the prop controller, which also stores the sound. I've tried different speakers and they all do the same thing. So they have made a lot of improvements in the design of prop controllers over the past several years. So I'm going to upgrade to one with better sound performance and more outputs. I'm going to create more of a vignette with this prop this year so that there's ambient sound and lighting on the scene that changes color when the prop goes off. I'm also going to add one more spring hinge to reduce the force required to pop up the lid. I'm also going to lengthen the chain a bit to see if I can have the lid open even wider without creating a new cam. If I did create a bigger cam with greater differences between the high and the low parts, I run the risk of the motor stopping at a larger part, and it's going to keep the lid open wider than I'd want. There needs to be some mystery here with this prop. So one solution might be using a wiper motor with a park wire, but I'm not sure I want to overhaul the prop that much, so I'm just going to experiment a bit and see what I can do. Thanks for watching, and I'll post an update video on Fluffy 2.0 when I'm all done.